Hey, it's Coach Ange from Mississippi Public Broadcasting Online. We're here to talk to you a little bit more about ACT reading. Remember what we've been trying to make sure you understand that ACT reading is so important when it comes to ACT because it's one of those parts of the ACT that if you put the proper strategy and plan in, you can do quite well and it can help you pad your composite score. And why is that important? Because once again, the better you do on ACT, the more money that ACT, well, all the scholarships in terms of looking at colleges, of course, will provide to you. In addition to that, you can get in whatever school that you want, provided you've done some other little things, but ACT is so important. So make sure that when you have the opportunity, of course, to listen to what we're talking about today, listen intently, take notes, try to create your own plan that maybe looks a little bit like what we're doing here. Because at the end of the day, what we want to do, of course, is do as good as we possibly can do when it comes to ACT. What we're going to do is review questions number 21 through 25 and try to examine why it is that they are the correct answers. And with that, we'll jump right in. This is passage 3. It's informational text once again. And because it's informational text, remember what I said. I think one of the best things to do when it comes to informational text, and we kind of tell you this in the annotations, is highlight the first sentence of each one of the paragraphs, and also try to find the the main thesis of the very first photograph, very first passage, and then what the conclusion would be in terms of looking at the last passage. So what we try to do, of course, is give you some hints about what it is. And keep in mind now, when it comes to annotation strategy, you create your strategy that you want, but it's very important that you do annotate. What questions need to be answered? Well, what questions do I answer myself when I'm going through and doing this, in this particular case, informational text? It is on some historical content in terms of looking at history, but it's still informational text, which means I need to know what the thesis or what it's about, what are some of the supporting details, what inferences can I make, and what conclusion can I draw? Well, when I look at it, I try to answer those questions, and what I did, of course, in going through the questions, and I'm not going to go through and give you the answers to them. You can look at those at your own convenience. But what I try to do is to formulate in my mind what it is that this particular passage is about, and by answering those questions, I can better understand. So I read the paragraph, answered those questions as best I could, as shortly as I could, and now I'm going to dive into the questions or the answers, the questions and the answers themselves. Question number 21, which of the following rhetorical techniques does the author repeatedly use in the passage as a means to engage the reader? Forthright attacks on what he labels the reader's misunderstanding of basic historical fact, open-ended questions and appeals directed to readers, direct quotations from the past readers of his work that capture the responses to his ideas, descriptions of his own experiences as a citizen of the Muskogee Creek Nation of Oklahoma. So what we're going to do is go through and figure out which one of these statements or answers best coincides with the question. And when we do that, what we do is, it said something about questions. And one of the things I noticed upon going through and reading, there were all these questions throughout this particular passage that the author kept asking us. Questions like, while he was a prisoner of war, why then was the photo of Geronimo taken? What meanings did it convey at the time? What must have been in Golotale's mind? What does the photo mean today? So when I started looking at it and I started thinking about the answer choices, what it says, which of the following rhetorical techniques does the author repeatedly use in the passage that means to engage the reader? He keeps asking us questions, question after question after question. And the best answer in this particular case is B, open-ended questions and appeals directed to the reading. And once again, the answers are there. All you have to do, of course, is be open to the possibilities of what the answers could be. Question number 22. It can most be reasonably inferred that the author's statements about the educational use of photographs apply to photographs taken during what time period? And once again, it asks us in the questions that we ask ourselves, what are some of the inferences that we can make? And we may hit it on the head and we may not hit it on the head, but it gives us an idea that we should start reading between the lines and see what it is that the author is trying to tell us. So F, any time period since photographs were taken. G, in the 19th century exclusively. Any time period prior to the digital age but not beyond. Only in the 10 years after photographs had first joined government expeditions in the West. So it can be most reasonably inferred that the author's statements about educational use of photographs. So does he give us a time frame when we should use photographs for educational purposes? Well, when we go through, He says the educational potential of photographs is enormous. However, photographs are not objective and they can easily tell us as many lies as truth. But he in no place in here tells us that we can only use it in the 19th century. He doesn't put a time frame on it. So we have to assume that if he doesn't put a time frame on it, we can use educational photographs from any time period. And so when we think about it that way, the best answer, and based on that inference, would be any time period since the photographs were first taken. So it's the question is, it can most reasonably infer the author's statement about the education of the photograph apply to photographs taken during when? Anytime. He doesn't put a limitation of when the photographs should be taken and when they should be, if they're going to be valuable. Anytime. And that's pretty much it. If he doesn't tell you that it's not, then that must mean that it is. Question 23, which of the following words is most nearly given a negative connotation in the passage? Sometimes what you have to do, of course, is read before the word or after the word, and what we did is we went through and we pulled out each one of these lines and try to highlight the word and the statement around the word and see which one of them is the negative. Well, when we go through, the first one says using photographs as education resources represents a particular challenge and must be done with care. Well, that doesn't seem negative to me, just saying that we have to be careful when we do that. The second one says Indian people struggle to adapt to catastrophic changes in their old ways of living. Photographers took thousands of studio portraits. Well, is that negative? It doesn't sound negative. The next one, these efforts generated a legacy of photographic images of American Indian people that can serve today as a rich educational resource. But if done carelessly, they may also feel romanticized or stereotypical perceptions of American Indians. When I look at that word stereotypical that comes right after, and these two words are used in conjunction with one another, when I look at stereotypical, I look at the word stereotype, that automatically conjures a negative image to me. So could it be possibly that the answer I'm looking for could be romanticized in this case? Well, let's move on. He and other Chiricahua Apaches fought a protracted war from 1863 to 1886 against the United States for the right to live in their traditional homelands rather than reservations. Is that negative? Well, when I look at it, the only negative one was the one that we identified, where it had romanticized and stereotypes. So when looking at it, the best answer in this particular case is going to be letter C. Once again, answers are there. You just have to be dogged in your determination, of course, to answer them. 24. Which of the following actions refer to the passage most clearly characterizes a hypothetical event rather than an actual event? F, travel to. G, defend. Farmed, line 72. Stand next to in line 83. So which one of the following actions referred to the passage most clearly characterizes a hypothetical event rather than an actual event? In other words, which one of them is fiction, okay, or fictional in context? So it says, Indian to the traditional bound savages, Indian delegations that traveled to Washington, D.C., that's something that could happen, did happen. To defend tribal identity, that's something that did happen. It wasn't fictional. Ironically, the Apaches had long farmed as a part of a traditional life. That is a fact. That is not fictional. So this, and this, so travel to defend, and farmed, we've already identified those as being things, of course, that did happen. The only one that may be fictional is now looking at the last one here. And we look at it and it says, in addition to conducting background research, trying to put yourself inside the photo and stand there, well, you can't put yourself in, that didn't happen. It can happen in your mind, but it didn't happen in reality. So the only one and the best answer in that particular case is, guess what? Stand next to in line 83. Once again, the answers are there. You just have to be dogged in your determination once again and finding out what they are. Question 25. Particular photographs of Goyatale. And once again, and that's another little pro tip I'm gonna throw out to you. When you're going through and you're reading these things and you are having trouble pronouncing a name like Goyatale. Goyatale was a Mexican, was a Chiricahua Apache. The Mexican called him Geronimo. And if you can't say Geronimo, then call him George. because you're not worrying about, what you're trying to do is make it as an easy read for you as you can, okay? So if pronouncing Goyatale 15 or 20 times is something that that interferes with your understanding, then substitute something else. 25, particular photographs of Goyatale are referred to and described by the author to support his claim that A, accurately understanding a photograph depends on knowing the circumstances in which a photograph is taken. B, photographs can be used to date events in the life of a legendary figure like Goyatale. C, anyone can control his or her public image by becoming more involved in the field of photography. And D, the merits of a photograph from the 19th century depend on who took the photograph. So it's a good photograph depending on who took it. I already know that that's not probably going to be an answer. But in another well-known study of portrait circa 1890, Goyatale poses with a rifle. To late 19th century Americans, Geronimo was a dangerous enemy, yet at the time that this time of curiosity and romantic symbol of the Wild West. This photo personifies the renegade image, but strangely, it was taken about 2 or 4 years after Goyatale surrendered. Now, he may look menacing, and he may look like in this particular photograph, that he is a threat, but he's living on a reservation, has been on a reservation for 3 to 4 years, and I would dare say that the rifle that he has does not have any bullets in it. So what we do is we see this menacing photograph of Geronimo or Goyatale, and in actual fact, in terms of looking at the historical reference, that it suggests that he is, of course, this renegade or whatever, and he's primed for battle. But the reality was that at this particular time, he wasn't fighting nobody. He was, living on a reservation, watching his kids and his grandkids. So based on that, the best answer, particular photographs of Goyatale are referred to as and described by the author to support his claim that accurately understanding a photograph depends on knowing the circumstances in which the photograph was taken. In other words, it's here. We can look at a photograph like that and we can jump to all sorts of conclusions. And in most cases, they're wrong conclusions because we don't have the proper context and we don't have all the information. And what the author is simply saying, and we identified this when we went through and did our annotations, he's saying that photographs for education are great. They are a wonderful educational tool, but we have to be careful and make sure that when we look at those photographs, that we're looking at them in context and making sure that they're historically accurate. Now, this is Coach Anderson from Mississippi Public Broadcasting Online. And what we've tried to do, of course, is give you some explanations of why it is that the answers that we've chosen on this particular ACT reading section are the correct answers, and try to give you some rationale as why it is that they are the correct answers. And remember, if you didn't do as well as you think you should have, it may take some adjustments. Take some adjustments in terms of your annotations, the questions that you answer yourself when you're going through and your approach. And even in something as simple, of course, as being able to substitute things in that you can't, for proper names that you can't pronounce, like instead of Goyatale, saying Geronimo, or saying George, or something like that. But do the very best that you can when it comes to ACT reading, because remember, if you do well on ACT reading, your parents will be happy and you'll be happy because, number one, you'll have all this money from these various universities that'll pay you, of course, to come to their university free. And in addition to that, you will be able to get into whatever university or college that you desire. This is Coach Anderson from Mississippi Public Broadcasting, and we'll see you next time.